Amazing.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Super excited for another wonderful speaker full of all kinds of wisdom to present and share with us with the Prowess community. So I'm super excited to introduce Vikki. She is fantastic, and you're going to hear so many time hacking and organization tips and how to manage your time and how to make the most of it. She has so many years of experience. She's got an amazing podcast and all kinds of resources to help out in that world. So I am very excited to be introducing Miss Vikki. Please take it off.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. And thank you everyone for showing up. I like to think of these things as like a time investment. We're all showing up here, not just to like fill our time and fill our days, but really to take something from it. So participate, engage, get your questions asked. There's no such thing as bad questions. There's no such thing as asking too many times or having to repeat or anything like that. This is like a judgment-free zone. I want all of you to leave with like, oh my God, that call has just saved me. Like it's just paid me back a return of 5x. So everything I do, you're going to invest an hour, you're going to get 5 hours back. That's going to be our goal for each of you. So I'll start with like a really brief introduction, but I do want to encourage you guys to ask all the questions and drive the conversation instead of me like talking at you. My background was really one of like, I always wanted to be successful and I was super ambitious. And I even remember reading when I was younger, these like fiction books about these like women on top, and they were always like working long hours and doing all the things. And so I was like, oh, that must be what it takes to be successful. And that's what I did. I was always working harder, working longer, working weekends, working evenings, taking qualifications and certifications, to like all of these like things that I thought was going to create success. When really what was happening was a lot of anxiety, which we can definitely speak about, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of even decision overwhelm and indecision. And I found myself, I call it like a procrastinating hustler, where I was either like completely overwhelmed, not getting anything done, or I was like burning the midnight oil, giving everything that I've got to like poor neck and poor back and all of that whole thing going on. And actually, the way I see it and what happened in my own experience is the less we do, the less time we give ourselves to do things, the more we are able to achieve. And a really like interesting example here I'll give is even speed reading. So people will say like, oh, when you're speed reading, how do you remember everything? But it's because our brain moves so fast. Think about how quickly we think compared to how quickly we speak. Our thoughts are so much quicker. So when we read faster, we remember more. When we read slower, our brain has the opportunity to be bored. So when we give ourselves more time to do things, we're giving our brain more opportunity to be bored. Now, on the flip side, we also come from this culture, like, you know, from 100 years ago, this work culture of more is better. And that culture is outdated. It's from pre-technology, especially the last 20 years. And it used to be that maybe you could differentiate yourself by doing more. But now everyone's available 24/7. There's always a new social app to be on. There's always a new dating app to meet a partner. There's always a new business app. There's always a new event. There's like literally probably millions of events happening right now that we can all access because of the internet, which is amazing. But if we are still in the more is better mentality, we aren't making those difficult decisions and prioritizations and then showing up rested. And the last thing I'll say before I invite you guys all to speak and ask me anything is I read somewhere the most, because I know, you know, a lot of you are mothers and in work and all of this stuff, like the most desired quality actually right now is creativity. And creativity creativity can't come under a to-do list of 50 things that we're trying to get done in a day, back to back to back. And when we think about productivity, we just want to separate out that productivity doesn't always mean doing things. Like rest can be productive. Having a hobby outside of work can be productive. Like I play this word game with my family through the screen because we're all there in England, and it's like 9 letters. And I was looking at it the other day and I didn't get any words, and my husband came home and he was like, what about that word? It was really obvious. And I was like, that's kind of like coaching, which is what I do, which is like when you're so close to something, you don't see it. So by doing this fun game, I created an example that I can share with my audience, right? That speaks so much better than me being like, hey, you should get coached. Like, so just inviting that kind of thing in. So I welcome all of your questions on time hacking, on what it is and what it's not, on your experience on time, on any anxiety that you have and experience, on where you feel like you don't have enough time or you want to create more time. I really want to leave that all open to you guys to direct the conversation.
I absolutely love that. So I'm going to jump in as you guys think of your questions. You said procrastinating hustler, and man, did I feel that. I felt that in my soul. Is that something you feel like you've worked on, overcome, or are in a better place about? Tell me more about being a procrastinating hustler.
Yeah. I think with all of these things, sometimes we think we want to get out of where we are instead of being willing for the waves to come and go. And I will tell you, for me and for most of my clients, when it comes back up again is when we are doing something new or something bold. So for example, we can be like, yeah, I'm like slowed down, I'm feeling really present. And then like a new job opportunity comes up or a new opportunity in our job comes up. And we're like, I have to go for that. And that's like the little familiar friend creeps up and is like, we must go for that. And then it's like, well, we don't have time to go for that. When are we going to go for that? And it's like, I know, we'll just work all throughout tonight. And we start making different decisions from that procrastinating hustler brain. But yes, now I work 15 hours a week, and that's been, through the process of time hacking and through that commitment to unlearning the like time equals worth or results equals worth work, and really the good enough. Like, does everyone here feel like they're good enough and they're smart enough? And if we lean into what hustle actually is and how I define it, it's not doing 20 things. It's doing things to try and think better about yourself. When I get this job, then I'll know that I'm smart. Is like, we're then going into that job application thinking I'm not smart. And when we're trying to take action to build a belief, like I am smart enough, I am, successful enough, that is how I define hustle. So two people could work till 10 p.m. on the same night. One person could be like, I decided ahead of time that this would be till 10 p.m. I knew this was going to happen. I accounted for it and it's all good. And the other person could be like, I said I was going to stop at 6, but I should do this other thing. And there's one more thing. And can you see how it's like the mentality, like hustle is a mindset rather than hours work, but the hours worked can just be the indicator. So if you do find yourself working longer hours, it's just good than you intended. It's just good to check in with yourself, like, where is that coming from? So I think that's also interesting to share.
I love that new definition of hustle. I feel like that makes me feel a lot better. And will help me be more aware of when I am putting things off, knowing that like, okay, maybe it's a new task and I'm a little intimidated by it, or I know I have to learn, but like I can learn it and like it's just looming over me and it's bothering me and it's maybe interrupting my rest, or maybe it's interrupting my family time or other things. So I think that procrastinating hustler and changing my view and what I think of hustle is definitely helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. And even on procrastination, the way I see it is one of 4 reasons why we procrastinate on anything. Sometimes it's a combination. That's the most fun part. It's really our thoughts about ourselves. Like if we're thinking, I can't do this, I don't have the skills, I'm not smart, that kind of thinking. The second is our thoughts about what the task at hand is. So like, this is hard, this is boring. We're going to show up differently when we're thinking that than when we're thinking this is going to be fun and I'm so looking forward to it. The third is the stakeholders involved. So you could be like, my boss is, can I swear on this, by the way? I do tend to swear.
Yes, please. Prowess is a very open community.
We swear often. We definitely, we foul ourselves quite frequently.
I'm surprised I have not sworn yet.
Yeah, so I've got a shitty boss, or even like nobody cares about what I'm doing or whatever it is there. And the fourth one, which is where time hacking comes in, are our thoughts about time. There's not enough time. I'm too busy. There's too much to do. So if you are procrastinating on something, the first thing you want to do is drop into, why is this happening? Like, we don't want to judge it. We don't need to argue with it. We don't need to resist it. Like, honestly, it's like spending 2 minutes dropping into, okay, but why is this actually happening? Instead of this shouldn't be happening, is going to just ease you away from it much smoother than all the resistance, which, as we know, spirals into like 1 hour procrastination, spirals into like, oh, and it's Friday and I didn't get everything done.
I think I need you to create a poster of those 4 things so that next time when I know I'm procrastinating, I'm like, oh shit, it's number 2. Check yourself.
Done. We can do that.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Looks like Jen has some thoughts. Jen, feel free to pop in if you'd like, but it looks like she's asking about your thoughts for time hacking, like, is it Pomodoro time hacking technique? But it feels like a rush against the clock and builds more anxiety.
Yes, I love that you asked that question. So when I created Time Hackers and time hacking, there wasn't really anything out there. So it's actually a really good point. How I define it is not actually with time hacks. And I've had quite a few people say to me like, oh, I hack time because I have two computer screens and I do them all at the same time. Or I hack time because I do the laundry while I'm listening to podcasts. And that's like the opposite of time hacking as I define it and have created it, which isn't to say it's the only way that it's spoken about. So, because I'm completely with you, like this with the Pomodoro technique, rushing against the clock, starting, stopping, it can be great. And if it works for you, if anything works for you, keep doing it because you want to hack your time. It's not like a one size fits all. But part of the problem as I see it is we've built this whole time industry, much like the diet industry. We've built this time industry, which is highly profiting off our inability to create time. It's kind of like when the fancy planners don't work, we use the calendars. When the calendars don't work, we use the apps. When the apps don't work, we use the reminders. None of those things are a match for our number one time tool, which is our brain, right? Like just because something's color coded doesn't mean you'll do it. And what time hacking is all about, and really just the definition of even hacker that I use is someone that uses non-standardized means of achieving a goal, right? So there's like the way that you can do it, and there's the way we hack around the back end. And time hackers actually do it by removing time from the success equation. So often we are saying, I don't have time, or I need more time. And it's not time anymore. Like, think about this. Think about how much time it would have taken 40 years ago for me to connect with 7 other women all over the world and have a conversation. I mean, it was actually impossible, but let's even say 7 women in the same city 50 years ago. Even planning it, like we would have to like see each other in the store, or I think maybe landlines were a thing then. I hope so. But if they weren't, good luck, someone's sending a letter, right? So all of this language that we use about needing more time, we forget that we do live in a world where things are instant. But just because I can, come and meet you all and come on this talk and speak doesn't mean that my brain wants to, because my brain's like, why would we go and expose ourselves to other people's opinions when there's like Netflix and cookies in the other room? Like, that sounds like way more fun. So the world has moved forward and our language hasn't. So as a time hacker, there are 3 steps that I teach, which have you moving faster than the speed of time. And that's not to say in 10-minute increments. We're playing the long game. Our brain is incredibly short term and it wants everything now. And then we end up rushing and hustling and anxiety inducing, all that fun stuff that I've spent a lot of time in myself. But actually the 3 steps to time hacking are nothing to do with measuring time. The first is, I call it managing your brain, but really it's like your story about you. Remember, one of the things that we spoke about with procrastination was if you don't think that you're capable of doing something, you're not going to want to do it. It's very simple. So really your story about you and your relationship with you. And that means like, yeah, I actually believe that I can pull through, and I believe that I can do hard things and I can figure things out, versus this is too hard for me. I'm not good at doing hard things. I'm not good at speaking in public. I'm not, like, if you have the story, I'm not good at speaking in public, it doesn't matter how much time passes, you are not going to take an opportunity to speak in public. So it's not going to take time to land a speaking gig. It's going to take changing your story you have about you. The second step to time hacking comes in making quick decisions and implementing on them immediately. We have so many decisions in a single day, more so than at any other point in time. And a lot of people have come to me and been like, Vikki, I'm just like indecisive. I'm just not good at making decisions. No one in this day and age is indecisive and not good at making decisions, because we are constantly making them. Like when you decide to brush your teeth, that's been a decision that you made. So what we want to get curious at there is, what decisions are outstanding, why, and you can even skip over the why if you want to and go straight into just answering them. So at any point of time, we have a list of outstanding decisions in our head, and we can even separate it out by role, like my work decisions, my house chores decisions, my parent decisions, my friend decisions, like getting them all out and just like solving for them. It's like you've been walking around with a backpack full of rocks on your brain, and you're just like emptying out the backpack. You're like, I don't know, it just feels so much better now. So the second step is, I suffer from analysis paralysis. Breaking out into decision categories makes sense. Yeah, it's going to be a game changer for you, really. So breaking down and you can do that like regularly. It's like a decision audit, because like I said, we do live in a world where there are constant decisions to be made, which is why I will also add here, and you guys can ask me about it after, like I really encourage my clients to switch their phones on airplane mode, or at least on like no 3G or 4G or 5G these days. So, really like, then there's no decision of, should I check my phone? Should I do this? Should I do that? Same with checking emails. Like, it's not that it's like a time hack, like a quick time hack, only check your emails once a day. It's how it plays into your decision making. If you aren't checking emails constantly, you aren't deciding what to say in all of those emails versus like a 30-minute window. And the third step is how we face fear and failure. Like, we evolved to avoid failure at all costs. We evolved at a time when failure, like failing to find adequate shelter or failing and eating the wrong berries and they're poisonous, literally meant death. That's like our lineage. And then what we want to remember is, we go into schools like as kids, and what we are taught is failure is bad. And then we come out of it into our like adult lives, the real world, and it's like, everybody fails. And in fact, the most successful people fail the most. And in this character is not, in this section is not just failure, it's also rejection. And that can be social rejection, that can be work rejection, that can be romantic rejection, however it is. When we are so fearful of rejection, we don't show up. We let things take time. Time is the comfortable excuse underneath the like fear of rejection or failure of any sort. And again, these three are all related, right? Because if you have a good relationship with yourself and someone rejects you, it's going to land very differently than if you are constantly judging yourself and in that self-critical spiral, which, by the way, has also been taught to us, especially as women, I will say. So kind to self, if that's what's happening. It's nothing's wrong. But when we are thinking, when we're like, I've got my own back, everything is good, we're still going to get rejected and we're still going to fail. Like, no one doesn't get that. But it's just gonna land differently. And in fact, the sooner we are willing to fail, the better. So I'll even give like a funny, like a lighter example, let's say, which is like, one of my friends was dating someone. She said, I don't know if he's into me. I don't know. And she's like, we're going back and forth, and then he's not replied. And I said, just ask him, right? And it's like, I don't want to ask him because what if he says no? I'm gonna feel bad. I'm like, yes, you could feel bad today, or you could feel bad in 2 months. When he's like continue to like not really show up, and then you've spent 2 months. And that's how we let things take time, because we're avoiding the shitty feelings that we associate, that have been wired into us around failure. So one of the things that I encourage all of you to think about is like, what would be different if you were celebrating fails? And why might fails be worth celebrating? And I should add to that, I call it failing forward. You've probably heard that concept. It really is. And I'm going to give you my 4-step evaluation process. It really is like I love the saying, I'm either winning or learning. Gandhi, I think it was. And I did a podcast on it. I was like, oh my God, I'm either winning or learning. It's so good. And that week I had a realization. I was like, I'm not winning or learning. I'm winning or learning and then winning more. Because when you fail and you learn from that fail, the value, the knowledge that you get there sets you up for repeat fails instead of just like, I don't know how that happened. It just happened. And then I was like, woo, good thing. And I've had clients come to me and be like, I've had one business or I've had one job and I was doing really well and I don't know how I got it. And now I need to do it again. And I'm more scared that everyone's going to think I'm a fraud because I don't even know how I did it then. So when you are failing, you are literally like, it's an opportunity creator. It's a knowledge creator. We want to be leaning into that with a brain that maybe wants to avoid it because it's afraid. So we want to hold space for that too. So the 4 steps that I'll give you, and then I'm going to leave space to ask questions because I really do encourage you guys, ask anything, and you can even type or you can speak up, or if there's anything you want coaching on, like this is your time for all of you. So the 4-step process that I use to evaluate anything it's really simple. And the priority is to take the learnings, but also implement something, because so often we're learning and we're like, do, back to my old patterns. So that's why I created this. And it's like based off of what I've learned from other people as well, put together. So the first is like what worked, like what went well. And you start there, by the way, because our brain has a negativity bias and it wants to jump immediately to, here's what didn't go well. We just want to like, like capture what did go well first. And especially like things won't go well, but we just want to calm our nervous system down. So focusing on the what went well is also going to do that and allow us to be more critical instead of self-critical. So what went well, then we go into what didn't go well. And then lesson learned, like always be thinking like, what is the lesson learned from this? And the last one is what to implement, like something to implement immediately. It doesn't matter if it's like one simple step. It doesn't matter if it's like, oh, next time I do like a call, I'm going to make sure that I join 5 minutes earlier. Like it doesn't matter. Like something to implement is worth 1,000 ideas. Right? We all have amazing ideas. I know you do. I recently deleted all of my phone notes, my notes on my phone, like all of my business ideas from the last 10 years. I was like, this is a lot of notes that weren't implemented on. So always be thinking like, what's one thing I can implement? Nothing is too small. That whatever you implement on is going to be like so powerful. And you can even use that 4-step process just on the end of your week on a Friday. You can be like, I'm just going to evaluate my week.
I would love to hear more about, so you talked about like your story to yourself, being kind to yourself, and how our brain has an immediate negative bias. How do you work on that? How do you get over that and start at step 1 of what went well versus step 2 of what didn't?
Yeah. So we kind of do this all the time. It really is like the best way to redirect our brain is through asking questions, because our brain is on its own wiring. Like 95% of our thoughts are subconscious, but our brains are very clever and it will answer questions that you ask it, which is the power of doing this kind of evaluation. But it can even work with other things. Like, let's say there's something you want to do or something you want time for, whatever it is. And you're like, I don't have time for this, right? And that's like the story. How do you turn that into a question that's going to get your brain hunting for answers? Because our brain is like a supercomputer. It will answer. So I don't have time for this, flipping it to, how could I find time for this? Like if I was to find time for this, how would I do that? You'll be amazed at how easy it is. Our brains don't want us to know it's easy. It's like, don't ask me a question. You're going to make me work. And one of my roles is to conserve energy so that we can survive in the wild. But you can ask it the questions. It will answer. Like the things that feel so far away when we're in an I can't story, are really just like a question away. And I should add, once you start answering that question, withdraw judgment. So if you're like, how can I find time for this? And you're like, I just won't sleep. You might be like, oh, that's a stupid idea. Just let it go. Just like be like, I'm not going to judge any of you, all the ideas. I'm going to keep coming with them. It might be the idea 13 is the good one, right? But you want your brain to know that it's not going to be judged and punished for giving you shitty ideas, which there's going to be a lot of shitty ideas. Doesn't matter. You only need one good one. I think it was Beethoven, or I can't remember the numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's like he's created like hundreds of pieces and like a small fraction of them are, you know, super famous and life-changing and world-changing. And like, it doesn't matter that he had hundreds. So be willing to have all the bad ideas, all the shitty ideas, and see them as the stepping stone, because sometimes one of the bad ideas opens up something in your brain where you're like, wait, I'd never thought about that before.
I love what you talked about when when we're talking about finding time and how do I find time. I think it's important for us in our community and our audience to think about, well, how do I find time for both rest and play? I love that you brought up like playing a game with your family. So it's not only important to rest, but I think it's important to play. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, like I don't know. I do know. Like our pagan roots taught us that working hard is productive, and working hard and producing is our value. And again, this comes from a very different time, so we want to unwind it. When really, like for all of you here, we only know we get one life. We don't know what else. And maybe you, like me, have the pattern of like, oh, I'll play later or I'll rest later. I mean, I used to be quite proud about that. I'd be like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I was much younger then, it's fine. And yeah, I almost don't, because I could really take it to the place of, you know, like with the game where play and rest are productive, like they provide us more for our work. But I even want to separate it from that and be like, do you need to be productive? Can you play for play's sake? Can you rest for rest's sake? And just really sitting with like, we know this, right? We know at the end of our lives, no one's like, I wish I'd worked more. It really is like, I wish I'd spent more time with the people that I love. So as kids, we're like playing so much. And then as we get into this cycle and into this routine and into work and all of these things and all of these expectations, and we're pulled in a different ways, it feels like play is no longer available to us. And what I want to offer you guys is play is always available, but maybe play isn't available for 8 hours a day anymore. Maybe play isn't even available for an hour a day. And part of the culture of like time equals results, part of the problem with that is we don't do things unless we have significant time for them. So when I was working in corporate, I wanted to go to the gym, and I would go at lunchtime. It meant I had about 15 minutes for a workout, this hair, shower afterwards. Like, but I did that every day to get away from my desk. I didn't love the job, to get away from my desk and go and achieve something. Just like for me with my music, I felt really good listening to it. And I remember my colleagues being like, you're only working out for 15 minutes. What's the point? But actually, the point is none of you guys are working out at all. What? Because it's only 15 minutes. It's not valuable. It totally is. So sometimes the thing that you can do for yourself might just be playing a song you love and dancing around to it for 3 minutes. That might be it, but not doing it because you don't have time, because you already feel in time deficiency. Like you create time in like 3 minutes at a time, not like I need to like find a time for an hour-long massage. I need to find the right masseuse. I need to book it. And like sometimes it's like the simplest things that we can enjoy. I think moving our body is always a good form of play. Same with like rest. Right? So people will be like, well, you need to nap for 3 sleep rounds or 90 minutes or 3 hours, whatever it is. Like sometimes you can just lie on your bed with a 10-minute meditation and rest, or like binaural beats or white noise or whatever it is for you. Don't be shy to take a few minutes for yourself if that's what you've got. Not just because it's going to be productive, which it is, by the way. Like we know it is, because even at the gym, your muscles build in the rest period, but just because it's your life and you deserve to enjoy it now. Like that's what builds a better relationship with yourself, which is at the core of all your other relationships, all your other decisions, and everything that you do. Not a question, but I do try and honor and share your suggestion of failure is learning. It takes constant conscious decision. Yes. Yes. And I feel like that with so many of these things, like we've read 17 books. So like, yeah, I get it. Failing is the way. But when we're confronted with it, we're like, ooh, like I can even tell you guys, I was on a podcast interview recently and she said, tell me about like the last time you failed. I was like, I'm failing every day. It's horrible. Which is another reason to incorporate play and rest today. Like this is what time hacking is. It's optimizing your time. So you are showing up for like work, like and doing the uncomfortable stuff that you don't want to do instead of all the busy work that like keeps you being like, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock and I've not got anything done. So doing that, it almost requires more play and more rest. You are like turning your brain up. You are turning sometimes your nervous system up, all of these things that like, it's kind of like high intensity interval training for your life. And we know that creates like such a great workout. It's the same for us. Like, can we intensely show up for what we want to do today to get it done and then take actual rest? Because one of the common things I see a lot with my clients is not only are they not maybe optimizing their time on and really showing up 100% and easily distracted and all of that stuff, which is like our brains, our world, it's totally fine if that's you. I mean, it's also still me and I'm the expert in this. But then we're not taking proper time off. We're off and we're thinking about like, oh, like, did I switch my hair straighteners off? Did I arrange the kids' meal tomorrow? Did I send that email? What should I say to that email? I wonder if that person looking at me, that person definitely was judging me. Oh, I wish I hadn't said that yesterday. And like the never ending to-dos and so on and so forth. So often we are not performing in what we want to do in our work world or any of the world. We can separate out like the world where you are serving others, be it work, family, and the world where you are serving yourself. And we are not showing up in our work to serve others, not because we're not good enough, not because we're not smart enough, not because we're going to get things wrong and all of this stuff, but because we've not rested and not played. And our like that little woman inside of us, that little girl is like, hey, hello, remember me? Like, I'm doing everything. I continue to show up and you don't give me any attention. Like, is this it? Because I don't want to play if this is it. Like, fuck it. You said once we achieved X that we would do Y. We achieved X. We achieved X plus, and you're still not giving me time to play. It's still not good enough. Like, it's completely demotivating for us. So giving ourselves that rest and that play and understanding that failure is uncomfortable. It literally is against our brain's programming. We are swimming against the tide and we know that we're choosing to, but just because we're choosing to doesn't mean, and then it was easy. So yeah.
Everything you're speaking is like speaking directly to me, I swear. But my battle is the correlation between, and it's kind of a lot of this, is just that time and guilt factor and the guilt that you feel in not quote unquote having enough time. Like it's that constant feel of guiltiness, especially with like kids and running around. And I wasn't able to commit enough to this portion of my work today because this came up. It's just that constant guilt factor correlating with time. It feels like it's never ending.
So kind of like the guilt is there because you're not doing the things that you think other people expect you to do.
Yeah. Yep. And just feeling like, and I didn't get to the last load of laundry to fold. I mean, it's just that's really where I have to work with my brain on really triggering that. It's not guilt, right? It doesn't need to feel that like weight of guilt, but that's really where, for me, it's the time and the guilt piece that I feel quite often.
Yeah. But the guilt is coming from you've not done things that you think you should have done.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Do you think that maybe like your expectations around what you think you can get done in a day are too high?
Probably, yeah. But that's why these techniques and these talking through kind of with myself ahead of time, like really having that conversation with my brain and asking like, what do you think you can get done today? What is reasonable versus not reasonable? I think will definitely help.
Yeah. Jim Collins said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none.
Yeah.
And I even think about the word priority. It's like, it used to be like, what your one priority. And then someone was like, I've got more than one. Like, I don't know. And now we end up with like 20. Like, I've got 20 priorities. They're all super important. And you can have 20 priorities, but maybe not 20 priorities every single day, because 20 priorities broken into a week could be 3 priorities a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be like just, and this is something super common that I see in a lot of my people, and that I totally did as well, is like, but I could squeeze like an extra laundry in. I could probably do that. And like the mentality being like, because it's better to do more, what I want you to think about is, what if it is better to do less? What if it's better to not do an extra laundry today, and to just be like, you know what, I do a single load laundry on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And that's when I do them. And like, if something comes up in the meantime, whatever, like that's when it happens. Or, you know, like really think, like deciding ahead of time. Yeah, Laura. Yeah, exactly. Deciding ahead of time to create spaciousness in the to-dos of like, I don't want to go. And someone else could be like, I want to go back to back on my laundry. I want to have one laundry day. Like, you guys get to choose. That's why it's time hacking. It's like each of you have different preferences and different circumstances and different times in the day where you feel most creative versus when you feel tired. So when you do read things like, eat the frog first and start with the most difficult thing, I just want you to give yourself permission to be like, I actually am not a morning person, and I feel my most creative right before lunch. That's when I like to do it. And I love the fact that I get a reward immediately afterwards, or I feel creative at 5, whatever it is. So yeah, just really, Brittany, for you, I would really consider, are there 5 things that you could take off this to-do list that create space for actually the things that you want? And like I said, it's uncomfortable work in a more is better world. But yeah, like we do, especially as women, tend to overstretch ourselves and be like, I should be able to like be a mother and a housewife and do the admin and do work and be available on social media platforms and for my friends and for my peers and for my neighbors. And I should be cooking and clean. Like, I should be doing all of the like, says who? Like, there has never been a time in the world where women have done all of those things. Like, you know, cutting ourselves some slack and being like, you know what, tonight I'm not going to cook. We're literally going to put a pizza in, like whatever it is.
So to that point, isn't there an element of relying more on your partner and asking for help? I mean, I realize it's a touchy subject. I'm not married, but I think there's a lot of just telling your partner, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Do you want to give it a shot? Do you want to help? I'd really appreciate it. Can we try that out?
And also your kids. I don't know how old they are, but you know, if they're an age of like, yeah, you guys have got one of my friends was like, got a fun new game where you put all the toys away. Like, whoever does it first.
Let's play.
Yeah, my brother told me recently, he's like, I used to do it with you when you were younger. I'd be like, I bet you can't do all the dishes, and you would like literally fall for it, like 5-year-old me, like waddling around.
Well, I wonder too, how much does perfectionism play into it? How much do we need to be on top, perfect, have this perception, and what do we think, you know, being a good mom and being a good employee and all those things, like how much does perfectionism play into that and part of that story that you're telling yourself?
For sure. I think where a lot of this has come up, and I've noticed, prime example today, and this has been kind of just been the case recently with having younger kids in school. But when it's those things that are out of your control that totally like rearrange your time and capability, that's the stuff that I really, laundry, yes, that stuff's there. But it's that stuff on the back of your mind then that was supposed to get done in addition to work. And now I have my son home, he's 4, who has to be COVID tested, right? You know, got to take him. And then that guilt piece of time and just throwing him in front of the computer or in front of the TV because I need to get XYZ done here at work. You know, that's the stuff, the uncontrollable things that come up. How do you restructure with your brain to still make that time and make it, you know, asking those type of questions and figure it, because that's the stuff that comes up all the time as a mom and in work and in your job and your day to day. It's that stuff that's out of your control. How do you fix that so that you still do have the time, you know, and having that conversation with yourself?
Yeah. And what do you think creates the guilt?
Well, like throwing him in front of the TV for 3 hours makes me feel terrible, but I don't have, like, I also have work.
Yeah.
Right.
So do you think that like anyone throwing their kid in front of a TV for 3 hours creates guilt?
I don't know.
Yeah. Because it's kind of like, there's probably some people that are like, I love putting my kid in front of the TV for 3 hours. It's like the best. Like, I don't even care about my kid. Like, I don't even know what he's doing. Right. Because there's things we do that are neutral. Putting your kid in front of for 3 hours is neutral because everyone can have different thoughts about it. But your interpretation of it is what's creating the guilt. So the like shouldn'ts or the shoulds or the judgments, all of that side of things. And actually, maybe we don't have a choice. Maybe he's going to go in front of the screen for 3 hours. So that's going to happen. But where we have choice is in the stories we tell ourselves about it. And like, that's what causes the pain. Like, what do you want it? What, if you got to choose what you were going to think about it, what would you want to think about it?
Not think about it at all. And that it is what it is. It's
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're off making money, Brittany. You're providing too while he's watching TV.
Yeah.
Get it, girl.
Just don't let it get to me.
Yeah. So I'm going to run through what I call the model, which I certified at the Life Coach School. It's her tool. So she starts with circumstances, like neutral facts. So the neutral fact is kid watching TV for 3 hours. What's your thought about that that's producing the guilt?
That I'm not giving him more attention or playing with him.
Yeah. So I'm not giving him more attention. And then that makes you feel guilty. And then what do you do when you feel guilty? Because you're thinking, I'm not giving him enough attention.
It consumes me. It's really hard to focus. It's hard to, that's where that procrastination will start. You know, you become anxious. I get super anxious. Anxiety takes over.
Yeah.
You just can't. Yeah.
So then like probably the work is taking longer. You're not focused at work. And then it's going to be longer away from him. Hello.
Here we go.
Hello, little man.
An example.
And then it's going to be longer away from him and your mind's going to be more distracted. And so from thinking I'm not giving him enough attention, the result that you are, and then that makes you feel guilty, and then you aren't feeling focused in your work, and then it's going to take you longer, and then you're in anxiety, you're not optimizing the time that you are giving to the work. What result do you think you're creating?
Just zero success. Like not, it's just that you kind of, it's a dead end.
Yeah, like nothing is getting your attention.
Yep.
You see how the thought, the story compounds, like it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep.
Which is why the thoughts that we say are so important. You know, and so often we can be like, I have to think this because watching TV is a bad thing. When it's like the only result you're going to create from thinking that you need to give him more attention or you're not giving him enough is not creating what you want to in that time anyway. Versus like, this is it.
Yeah.
I like that Jen had some.
That was not planned.
That was perfect. He's adorable. I like that Jen had some comments here too about maybe lowering standards of the house and just appreciating the help from her husband and the kids. But then also when relating and talking about guilt and things, that she realized her kid was actually learning something because she had control of what he was watching. So her son is starting to read and not getting any help from her, and he's 4. So it sounds like she found a different resource within, you know, she's not her kid, isn't just watching dumb TV, but maybe she found something that was useful. And so I think there's 2 really cool points in there about giving up a little bit of control on some of your standards, and then also like using the resources. It's awesome that we have so much at our fingertips. So maybe there's something cool and new he can learn while he's watching TV.
Yeah. I'm even going to share something else from someone else that I know. And what she does with her kids is one of the things, and maybe you guys can relate to this as well, like we so struggle to be bored. But Einstein has this beautiful quote, which is like, imagination is more important than knowledge. And what she says she does with her kids on purpose is like literally let them be bored. Like they get used to being bored and then they create from that space. Now I imagine it requires more patience. And I don't know, I've not done that process myself, but it is really, I love this concept that Jen shared of like, you know, there's just more options. And also like when I lowered my personal standards, people help. Yeah, I used to love when I was younger folding the laundry. It was like, I thought it was like fun. I was like, I am a woman. So yeah, I'm sure my mum had to lower the standards, but yeah, just allowing, I think especially as women, and you guys tell me, like actually asking for help, like Suzanne was saying, asking for help, asking for not just like, I could probably survive with this much help, asking for this much help. Like, why not ask for more help? I don't know why we continue to carry all the burden when really there are people that can help. And maybe it's not a partner, maybe it's a kid, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's someone from the school run, maybe like, who knows? But again, maybe we can figure it out by going from like, I can't do this alone, to like, how can I get support? And flipping like whatever shitty thought we're having into a question that's going to produce answers. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I think everyone relates to that.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. That's great.
So when we talk about planning for play and rest and things, you know, it's a big deal that it's summertime now, right? Congratulations to all the moms for getting through another goddamn year of school and all of the nonsense that you had to deal with. That's amazing. What type of things could we think about when we're planning for something daunting like a summer break?
Yeah. So yeah, I was telling Linda, I was on a podcast interview earlier this week and she's like, oh my God, it's summer. Everybody needs time hacking. Because it really is. Although I do feel like everyone's had some pretty solid training during COVID times, and maybe summer's going to be like, oh, like it's not the most difficult thing we've done this in the last year. But really, again, it comes down to like, even if we're to think about spending time with our kids, and that last one of like, a big thing that I will say comes up with women is not wanting to disappoint others. We don't want to disappoint our kids. We don't want to disappoint our partners. We don't want to disappoint our parents, our managers, our co-workers, our pets, like whatever it is, we tend to live off like trying to avoid disappointment. And what I want to offer you all as you go into summer and as suddenly your roles compound and there's a lot more distraction, a lot more people there, is being willing to allow other people to experience the emotion of disappointment, because our emotions are temporary, but trying to avoid other people feeling disappointment is exhausting and permanent, right? Like being willing to be like, I know you want to go to the park. We're going to go in 3 days. We're going to go on Sunday or whatever it is. I know that I said that I would make dinner for the kids tonight. It's not going to happen. I know I said I would meet this deadline. Like all of these things, being willing to do that instead of, I'm going to just stay up till 11 p.m. and just finish it no matter what. And then I'm just going to like skip this and skip that, skip any kind of thing for myself. And I'm just going to keep going from the empty cup. I think a super skill and superpower for everyone going into the summer. It's like the opposite. We're like, summer, yay, yippee, fun. But it is the time where there's going to just be a lot more pulls on you, and just going into it being like, I am willing for other people to have whatever emotions they're going to have around not doing all the things and suddenly gaining, like we're not gaining extra hours in the day just because it's lighter for longer, but we're not, there's still 24 hours in the day. We're still having the same roles, and suddenly those roles are going to cross over a lot more with kids home and so on. And just really having kindness for yourself with it. And one of the things I want to say here as well is like, when it does come to things like kids or the next generation or even our friends, what do you want to model? Like, what do you want to be the catalyst of change on? Is it we do everything and we please everyone? Or is it like, hey, it's okay to say no, And hey, it's like great to prioritize yourself. Like, what's the impact that we actually want to have when we separate from the short term, which our brain is very short term motivated, which is why we love replying to emails instead of creating that like big document that we were going to do, because it's like tick yay. So we want to recognize that that's going to happen and just allow ourselves to be like, I'm going to not tick the 3 things off today, and I'm going to sit with that, because instead I'm making like an investment in the future that I want, the future relationship I want with my kids, where they know that I will say no and that I love them and I say no, instead of like, I'm not going to keep saying no until I burn out. The investment I want with my employee or my team or however it goes, which is like, you can't email me at 5 p.m. on a Friday and work. Like, I was with my cousin and I was supposed to see her on the Friday evening, and she's like, I'm going to be a bit late. And when I saw her, I said, well, how come? And she was like, someone emailed me at 5 o'clock, something that needed to get in on Monday. And I was like, so you just like, you teaching people how to treat you in everything that you do. And I know it's terrifying to say to a manager or anyone or a client, like, it's going to be a no. But what might be more terrifying is setting yourself up for that pattern again and again and again. So yeah, a bit of a different slant on the taking of summer, because you deserve time.
I love that. Sounds like you have a boundary around like when you reply to emails, and you have some good boundaries set in place for how you organize your life. I'm wondering if you want to share some of those boundaries, or maybe an app that you use, or tips and resources and things that you use to make sure that you manage your time the way that you want to.
Yeah. So I don't use a lot of apps like I spoke about. I think they can be time consuming as well. It's not to say there aren't good ones. I'm just not going to be the expert on that. But the one that I do use that I highly recommend is called unroll.me. And it keeps my inbox sparkly clean because it allows you to mass unsubscribe and continue to mass unsubscribe. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, I don't know, more people are getting my email more and more. So it's just like a really nice tool instead of like opening and going through and opening and going through. Yeah, one thing I do is I check emails once a day. And then I have a constant, and maybe you've seen it, Linda, the constant reply saying you'll get a reply within 24 hours. Like, your email's been received. I only check this email once a day. I also have like another email address, a personal one, where I reply saying I only check it once a week. So even less, but I do check it more. It's just like, I really encourage people to not use it. And I even direct people to reach out to my team. So the less that I can, really, like what Suzanne was saying, like the more you can outsource, like even if it's just like, honey, you know what, you do the food shop, I will put it away, and that will just be like, why don't you just have that job in the house? Or like, you on Friday night do the dishes every Friday, and then it's just like done. Because there is something nice about having the repetition and the decisions made ahead of time. So knowing, for example, that on Friday night he's going to do the dishes, it means during the week you're like less resentful and whatever, you've got that like time for you, and then he knows as well. And it's just like a regular, instead of, like I said, we're making so many decisions like, am I gonna, and you just get to like do those little things. I think you need to drop off. Thank you, Laura, for coming. So other things that I do, I have my phone on airplane mode, as I said, during the day. Now, for some of you, like mums, kids, school, maybe that's not an option. I encourage switching the internet off. They can always call you. And I don't have, I do have Instagram on my phone actually, but I don't have Facebook, and I can't even log into Facebook on my phone, any of that stuff. Sometimes it's like, why not just make the things that we don't want to do a bit more difficult, and the things that we want to do a little bit easier? Yeah, I think there's a lot of power to be said in finding that, waking up that 10 minutes earlier and just like whatever it is, doing something for you, even if it's just like a little bit of a longer shower. Maybe it is yoga, maybe it is meditation, maybe it's reading. Like one of my clients started reading fiction books in the morning. She's like, it's just like something I do just for me. So radical. But you know, like whatever it is that you want to do, even if it's just like lying in bed, like there is no bad thing. I would really encourage each of you to think like, what is like a 10-minute thing that I can do for myself? Maybe it's not even on a daily basis. That's okay too. Maybe it's once a week. Like, you know, one of the things that I was saying with Brittany as well, it's like when you undercommit, you don't have to stop there. You could be like, I'm only doing 3 things today, finish at 3 p.m. And then you've got choice. And that's completely different to spending the whole day behind. So it's not that we need to be like, oh, if I say I'm going to do these 3 things, that's all I'm going to do. Sometimes it's like, oh, now I have space. And from that space, I get to make a different decision. How to handle texting. Otherwise, I find that blocking my work calendar allows me focus time that I don't have a meeting. Otherwise, I find that how to handle texting. Otherwise, I find that blocking my work calendar allows me focus time that I don't.
Sorry, I mean, how do you handle texting when you block everything out? I mean, you're really good at just putting out your email, but when you're in a work environment, you can't quite do that. But in your situation, how do you go by handling texting? Do you also put it on hold and you just like, I'm going to respond once a day? I mean, texting is meant to be more immediate, right?
Well, it's all immediate. Everyone else wants it to be immediate.
Yeah.
Everyone wants you to be immediate. You get to decide, right? For me, it might be once a day. For you, it might be, I'm going to check once in the morning and once in the afternoon. It's going to be like a 10 a.m. and a 3 p.m. 10 a.m., 3 p.m. And you could even do like, I'm right before I leave work. But it could be like, and remember, so I used to be the person always replying to texts and WhatsApps and messages. And I was known to always be replying. And then when I stopped replying immediately, people would say to me like, what's going on? Are you okay? And it just came to either telling them what I was doing or them learning through it and being like, yeah, I just don't want to be on my phone that much. So like, if you really want, like you can have one inbox. Like I said, you might decide to be like, if you really need me, my phone will be available for a phone call, but I'm just not going to be replying to texts. Because what texts do and what emails do typically is they create time debt. And what I mean by that is they're giving you more to do later. Every time you reply to a text and you're going back and forth in a conversation, like now I say to my friends, my family, like I don't want to type on a screen. Like it's not how I like to speak. Some of them still do, and they can do that to each other. I prefer speaking on the phone and having like a deep dive conversation, which means that maybe I don't speak to people as much. And that also comes with like, you know, a cost, but it's really you deciding what you enjoy. And if you do love texting, set yourself an hour and be like, this is going to be my hour to reply to everyone and get back and forth in conversations and really enjoy it, instead of it being something you dip in and out of while you're working on the project, while you're checking your emails, while the phone rings, while someone's asking you to pull something else together, while you're running to a meeting. Can you see how it's like just creating a bit more space to be present? Like I actually want to spend an hour texting or an hour replying to emails. I enjoy that. And I'm going to set aside time for it, for how I enjoy it. And if people don't reply in that hour, then we'll have the conversation tomorrow. Or you could decide in the evenings I'm available on my phone whenever, or on Tuesday evenings, or whatever it might be. But you'll be amazed at how quickly people learn and respond with how you lead. You teach people your communication style, your communication preferences. And the last example I'll give before we close out is when you become always available to answer the quick questions for everyone else, you might be taking something from them, because resourcefulness is a skill that all of us want, right? And I've like the amount of times where, you know, I used to be like, yep, let me go do that. And then as I stopped doing it, people were, oh, never mind. I figured it out. I've got it. All good. Because if people know that they can't rely on you to get an answer immediately, and this can happen in a workplace too, where someone's like, oh, Suzanne always has the answers. She always replies really quick. Like you get to change that relationship and that expectation and be like, I will reply to you, but it's going to be at 5 o'clock, just so you know. So if you need, so it's 11 a.m. If you want something before, I'm just like, that's when, like, that's us taking responsibility for our time instead of feeling like, you know, we always have to essentially people please.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to answer emails at 9 p.m. and the VP would respond back. We'd have this email exchange, and I'm like, shoot, I set the expectation that I'm working at night, which is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that a work relationship you still have?
No, thank God, no.
So yeah, but isn't that such powerful learning? Like when you're like, oh no, now I've set that expectation. Now you know for your future jobs, you're like, I'm not going to do that again.
Thing is, in executive or leadership positions, there's that expectation in a way. So it's like, it's hard to fight it. So you may want to work at night, but wait until 8 a.m. to press send. I think that's the lesson.
Yeah, like you get to choose. And of course, everyone else wants you to work at night. That's like not even a question. They really do, because they also think it's more productive. Whereas like it's actually going to be more productive for everyone to get proper rest.
Yeah.
Like really, when we think about it. So you just get to decide how and when you want to work and the expectations you set. And I can tell you, my first job in corporate, I had a boss that was a woman, and she had 3 young kids, and the CEO was a financial asset management house. He sent an email to the whole company saying, you will have to start now at 8, not 9. And she replied and said, nope, I take my kids to work. I work 9 till 6, and I do more in those hours than everyone else does that stays here till 8 or 9. Like that, me and my team will not be coming in at that time. So I was like a junior that could come in at 9 when like everyone else couldn't. But she really took that stance, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for her. But when it's kind of like, I think she said something along the lines of like, walk around the office, you'll see everyone on like the Daily Mail magazine. I'm not doing that at my desk. I'm here, I'm working, and I'm getting out. And when we know that we are showing up and we are working and our time is on, we're going to feel confident to say, yeah, and I'm going to leave at this time, and I'm not going to be available at this time, and our work, will speak for itself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, my other comment related to, I saw a lot of executives do that. They would just have their executives or their EAs block chunks of time on their calendar so they can have focused time. So I started doing that too. I was like, I don't want to live my life in meetings. So I would just block chunks of times to get my work done.
So good.
You got to do that.
Yeah. And you can even do like an hour in the morning and an hour at the end of the day. And then what that creates you is also like buffer time for when those things do come up, like what Brittany was speaking about, although those things could be bigger than 2 hours. But it's like we have the plan for the day, the idea of what will get done, and then something happens, and then you've created that buffer time as well. Amazing.
What an amazing conversation. Vikki, I cannot thank you enough for all of your insight. And for everyone that joined us, for your comments and stories and vulnerability and questions. Like, this is more than needed. I can't even find the right words for it. So I appreciate you so much. I'm so glad you joined us. Such useful conversation.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vikki, tell us a little bit about where we can find you as we wrap up.
Yeah, well, thank you all for showing up for yourselves and making this time investment. And one thing I will say is like, maybe there was a lot of information today, so you might want to pick one thing and implement it, right? Like what we spoke about earlier, committing to that one thing is going to be more powerful than like, I'm going to do everything or the one learning. So I think I really encourage you guys to do that. And I thank you all for like sharing your own tips and your experiences and being vulnerable, because that's what makes this conversation valuable. And I think more women having more honest conversations around this is just so powerful. And you can find me. I have a podcast called Fuck Anxiety and Get Shit Done.
Yes.
And maybe I can drop the links in here actually. And also I'm on Instagram at VikkiLouise___. It's in my name. And my website, VikkiLouise.com. And if you've got any questions or any follow-up things you want to ask me, you can just DM me on Instagram. Any questions. I'm actually going to do a Q&A next week for my audience on my podcast and stuff. So you could submit your questions and get them in.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We will see you again soon, and definitely will be following your Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too.
You
Bye.
too.